SoundCartel.
It seems counterintuitive that the older one gets, the less they're valued, generally in Western societies. It's not just frightening watching your hair thin or go grey, but second-guessing your worth at work, hearing the clock tick down to redundancy or countless rejection letters. It's enough to make you panic. But is there a solution? From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. No one likes to admit to being ageist, but sadly, and despite the fact that it's illegal, ageism is alive and well in the workplace today. Just ask mature workers who, for whatever reason, have lost their jobs and are trying to get back into meaningful work. It can be a soul-destroying exercise. In fact, according to Hunter Leonard, the founder and CEO of Silver & Wise, mature workers are facing a perfect storm of employment issues right now. So much so that a new approach is needed to help them plan for a new world of work ahead. Hunter has written a new book on the topic called The Experience Equation, Creating a Future Where Your Experience is Valued. The book is packed full of practical advice and it's inspirational too, with examples of those who've discovered exciting new opportunities. But what about that perfect storm? It starts with that ism word. Hunter explains to Heather Dawson.
Australia is a country that's quite ageist, so once people get into their mid-40s and then early 50s, they tend to experience ageism in one form or other, particularly those that are in working for other companies. Once they are made redundant, they find it more difficult to get a new job. So often you'll hear stories where they send off lots and lots of resumes, they don't even get a chance to interview for the position. And on top of that, we have an ageing population, so there's more and more people in that age group who are members of our working age population, if you like, so we're skewing more to that 40, 50 and 60 age group. And then on top of that, they're underprepared for a changing future of work as well. So they're used to one job, one company. So most mature people tend to have had sequential careers of a job for a few years, then move to another job, either within the company they're in or another one. They're not used to, like millennials, the idea of freelancing or the gig economy, and the way the world is moving, we're going to see more and more of that type of role. So mature workers generally don't have a plan for the future when they run into this situation because of redundancy or discrimination, and then they're not ready to handle what's going to happen next.
Not a pretty picture then for them. So, Hunter, in any event, what is mature age?
Well, I like to just take the simple ABS, or Australian Bureau of Statistics, definition of mature age, and that's 45 to 64. And then seniors are 65 plus.
Okay. So with all the trouble that mature workers have in regaining employment if they drop out of the workforce for whatever reason, that sort of age, is it discrimination? Is that at the heart of the problem in terms of employing mature workers?
Look, it seems to be, and it's not just me saying this. This is data from the Human Rights Commission and also the Australian Human Resources Institute, that somewhere around 27% of people in that age group experience some form of discrimination. And I have to say, from the research I've done, which is several hundred one-to-one interviews with mature age people, one for one, there's this distinct theme that goes through. If they have had a situation where they've had to look for a job, that they will be sending lots and lots of resumes and getting no interviews. And there's even a lot of advice around now from recruiters and also people that are sort of, I guess, helping with work transition to sort of leave your age off your resume, which in my opinion is kind of stupid because that only gets you to the interview stage and somebody's going to work out how old you are when you get there. Not that I agree with the discrimination, but it doesn't seem to be a really sensible way to handle the situation. I think removing ageism is probably the best way to do it. So,
can you give us an example or two of the way ageism plays out in the workplace, the sorts of responses that mature workers sometimes get?
Yeah, so assuming they do get to an interview stage, you end up with what I call barely varnished code for ageism, because of course it's illegal to be ageist. However, many companies and recruiters seem to have found a way around that, and they tend to ask things like, or say things like, well, maybe you're overqualified for this job, or do you think you have enough energy for this job? Or how do you think you'd interact with younger people in our organisation? Or a number of other ways of saying we think you're too old, but we're not allowed to say that, so we'll say this instead.
Well, I guess one of the sticking points, Hunter, you referred to it just now, was technological skills. Now, would it be fair to say that mature workers do actually need to step up a little bit in that area if they, want to seek future employment?
This is an area where I think we get a bit muddled with the issue. And I think we don't differentiate enough between mature people and senior people. So it's probably true that workers in their 60s and 70s haven't necessarily grown up with technology. But most people in their 40s and 50s, so this 45 to 64 age group, really have grown up with computers. I mean, they had computers when they were in their 20s in their workforce. And I think if you walked up to any 40, 50 or early 60-year-old now and asked them to take a look at their mobile phone, you'd find multiple apps that they use on a daily basis for their banking, to keep in contact with their families, to do various things. So my view is what we're doing is we're muddying the waters with a lot older population and saying that mature age people are not tech savvy. We also don't need everyone to write code. So what we need is for people to be able to use what are usually fairly simple to use technology systems, whether it's point of sale or customer relationship management or HR systems. They're all designed with what they call general user interface, or GUI design, which is an easy to use design. So most people can use these things. And I think saying that someone in their 40s and 50s is not tech savvy is probably, again, another way of being ageist and just not wanting to employ them.
Well, they're probably missing out in many respects, aren't they, by not employing them?
I would think so, in my opinion, because that's what we do. Their experience and wisdom far outweighs any issue you might have with technology.
For sure. So the question is, faced with discrimination and, dead-end job applications, how are mature workers supposed to respond?
Well, it's probably a case of taking a step back to take a step forward. So if someone finds themselves in this situation where they're sending off, hundreds of job applications and not getting an interview, then they can probably make the conclusion that's probably because of their age and that there is some discrimination in place. So what we recommend is to take a step back and start looking at the options instead of a full-time job with someone. What are the other options for you as an individual? You need a plan that matches what you're really good at and what you love doing with what people need. And so this, in simplistic sense, it means you almost have to understand your own personal value in the marketplace wherever you live. So if you live in Melbourne or the southeastern suburbs of Melbourne, for example, and you want to work within 5 or 10 k's of where you live, then you need to understand all of the potential clients of your services. So let's take a practical example. Let's say you're working in the marketing department of a big organisation. You got to your 50s, you were made redundant, you couldn't find another job. Well, perhaps you could use those skills that you learnt in working for that one big business and help a lot of small businesses with their marketing. So you'd need to understand all of the local businesses, what they needed in terms of help with their marketing, and therefore you could then consult to them, and it might be 5 or 10 small businesses would be enough for you to be able to have a good income as a marketing consultant. And the same would go if you'd been a CFO in a big organisation. Well, you could then help small businesses with financial services or financial consulting. So you're going to need to understand that there are other options to a job, as in a full-time job with one company. And based on what I can see from all of the experts around the world, if we're in a world where part-time work, freelance, gigs, contracting, these sorts of things are going to be the norm, that means you're going to have to be really good at being a freelancer or a gigster, as the hipsters call people who do these sort of short-term jobs.
One point that you raise is that a good resume and LinkedIn profile is not necessarily going to get you where you want to go. Yeah,
totally. And this is pretty much what the outplacement model is, and most of your listeners have probably heard that term if they've been through some redundancy in the past. But outplacement companies generally focus on helping you update your resume, helping you with interview skills, and then helping you update your LinkedIn profile. Now, if you've got embedded discrimination or ageism and mature age workers are not even getting to an interview stage, then a good LinkedIn profile and a good resume are not the solution. The solution is taking this step back and re-looking at your options and not batting your head against a brick wall of never-ending application, no interview, application, no interview. That's just a waste of time, in my opinion.
I think from what you've said, Hunter, we've got a bit of an idea, but why do you care so much about this particular age group? And what do Silver and Wise do to offer help?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll probably answer that 3 ways. One is I care deeply about the individuals that experience this. So no ism is good, whether it's racism, sexism, ageism or otherwise. It's not a good operating basis for a community to work under. So if we're putting aside a part of our population on the basis of sex, on the basis of race, or on the basis of age, then we're sidelining a group and not giving them equal opportunity. So I've always been interested in human rights. So from an individual perspective, I think that's a bad idea. In fact, the 30 Articles of Human Rights, number 23 is the right to work. And that right to work is afforded every human being on the planet, no matter where they live, what their sex is, what their age is, or what their race is. So that's number one. The second part, and the reason I care about it, is because we're already in a situation where we've got a declining number of taxpayers. So from an economic perspective, as a civil society, we can only afford to run a good society if we have enough people working and paying tax, which allows the government to have that revenue to be able to then support those who can't work, which is social security, age pension, disability pension, paying for roads and healthcare and education and all those sorts of things. So I do recognise I'm probably sounding like a politician and I couldn't be further from the truth, but we do need to optimise the number of people that are able to work, therefore able to pay tax, which therefore supports a stable and civil society that we live in. So my care is at all of those levels, across the economy and then back down to the individual.
And Silver and Wise?
Yeah, so the way we do it is we call ourselves a profit for purpose business, and the way we do it is we provide services for the individual mature age person, either to help them plan their future if there's somebody who wants to continue to work, or if they've decided to start a business, then we'll help them actually with the skills they need to run a business. So we've got decades of experience of running our own small businesses. We've codified books and courses that will help them do that. And we also have, which I'm very proud of, a group of all mature age focused coaches who are all 45 plus, who are there to sit with other mature age people and help them. So we're actually the first fully mature age focused coaching organisation in Australia as well. So it's our way of helping both those groups of people, some people to start businesses as coaches and other people to start businesses or handle their future planning with the help of those coaches as well.
That was Hunter Leonard, founder and CEO of Silver and Wise, and author of The Experience Equation, creating a future where your experience is valued. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast.
SoundCartel.